Today I'm going to show you how to bleed echo brakes. It's really simple. Let's just go ahead and get started. The first thing you're going to need is your bleeding kit. You're going to need these 2 syringes, and they should have 2 5mm bolts. One is knurled and one has a nut end, and you want to fit those into your tubes, and then you want to fit your tubes into your syringes. You want to make sure that the tubes are all the way down in the syringes, and hopefully they'll be at least over the first, if not the first 2 flanges on the 5mm bolts here. Then we need to take one and we need to put oil in it. Oop. And I'm going to try and get the air out of the syringe. If there's a little bit of air bubbles left in the syringe, it's okay. Just make sure you always hold the syringe this way so the air bubbles are up in the top. So that one's prepped. This one we're going to leave empty. You can see there's still some oil in it from the last time I used it. Okay, when it comes to tools, I think having the right tools is very important, and unfortunately I don't have all the right tools, but I have enough of the right tools. You're going to want a spanner, like an adjustable wrench, because we're going to use it to hold the master cylinder here. I'm going to use this wrench. You're going to need 4 and 3mm wrenches, and probably a 5 to put them on and off the bike. I took this off the bike because I thought it was easier for the video. You could leave it on the bike while you're doing this. The first thing we need to do, very important, is to remove the brake pads from the disc. You want to make sure you do not get any mineral oil on the brake pads. It will ruin the brake pads. So to do that, there's a little clip here. I'm going to pull this clip. And then remove this 3mm bolt. And now I'm going to remove the pads. Then we want to put this yellow block in place, put it back this way, and that acts as a spacer to keep the cylinder from closing, which will allow you to bleed the brakes correctly. So the first thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to remove this bleed screw here on the master cylinder, and I'm going to hold the master cylinder in place with this tool while I use a 4mm to remove this bolt. And I'm going to insert this syringe connector here. Alright, so that side's ready to go. Now, let's do the other side. This bleed screw, again, uses a 4mm, and we just... Now I'll put this one in on this side. The syringe with the oil on the master cylinder here, and I have the empty syringe on the slave cylinder here. So what happens now is I just want to push from this side, and I can see the air bubbles coming out on the other side, and I just want to push nice and easy, nice and slow, and push the air bubbles out on the other side. So now the bleeding is complete. I don't see any more air bubbles coming out here. If I was doing this for the first time, if this was a brand new brake and I'm just trying to get it set up, I would do mostly the same thing. I would go ahead and connect the system. I wouldn't connect this syringe to the bleed valve. I would just go ahead and push the oil through until I started to see oil come out of this opening. Then I would go ahead and connect the syringe to the bleed valve, and then I would bleed from there. I hope that makes sense. Once again, push the oil through the system to get it primed, and once you see oil coming out Now you can connect your second syringe and go ahead and bleed. And you're going to want to have about 50 milliliters of oil per break. You shouldn't need that much. As you can see, I've put in about 5 milliliters so far. All right, now that my bleeding is complete, I want to remove this one. And what I like to do before I put the screw back in is put a little bit of oil in here until that hole is full. And now I'll put the bolt back in. Make sure you use mineral oil. Do not use DOT oil in your brakes. It will ruin the seals. Now the other side here. I can double check this by pushing the brake, see if any air comes out. Oh, and there we have an air bubble. Make sure I check this one. You might want to tap it with like a little piece of wood or something to tap the air bubbles out. And when you're satisfied that there's no air bubbles left, you can disconnect this one too. Again, I'm going to put a little oil here to fill it before I put the screw back in. Okay, now the system's been closed back up. I want to check it for firmness. If I squeeze this lever, I'm going to check and see if there's any leaks. If it leaks, obviously that's bad. And if this lever feels soft, that probably means you still have air bubbles inside. You need to bleed it again. So, ready to reinstall this. But first, I want to clean it. And to clean it, I'm going to use some dishwashing soap and a little bit of water. And I'm just going to clean it off. Got my soapy water now, and I'm just going to put this in here. So after the little bath, I'm just going to wipe it dry. Next, let's reinstall the brake pads. Make sure after you remove the yellow block that you do not touch the brake lever because you want the pistons to stay in that position. And I'm done. Now I'm ready to reinstall my brakes. It's really simple. I hope this helped you guys out. If you have any other Echo questions, please ask, and I will do my best to get those questions answered for you. Have a great day, everybody, and remember, you are awesome. See ya.